Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got a special guest for you today, Danielle from Spark Financials. She's a CFP based out of California, and she's got a particular slant around financial planning in terms of understanding retirement, planning for retirement in a caregiving context, and what that means and what unique challenges. I've had hundreds of CFPs on the show, and Danielle's the first one to have this particular stance. I'm really happy to have her on the show to talk about her work, and for about anybody in the audience that is applicable, go ahead and reach out. But Danielle, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm proud to be one of the CFPs that join your podcast, talking about family caregiving, such an immense and important topic that is affecting so many. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. I love to start out just the brief intro, who you are, what you do, and I'm excited to dive into the questions for the audience.
Yeah, and a brief summary, I give people money advice. That's the simple answer. At 25, my grandmother fell on pile 4. And unfortunately, after that, she broke her hip and was not able to repair it. So she was a wheelchair user after that. And I was her family caregiver for 3 years until she passed away last year. And that really made me discover what family caregiving is like in a financial sense. Unfortunately, there's just not enough research and education surrounding caregiving, not only from a retirement aspect, but from a planning to care for aging parents aspect. And that's what really started me getting down like a rabbit hole, helping and specializing in helping not only family caregivers, but people planning for caregiving.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting. And I'll just start the conversation. And how is getting impact retirement planning, and how should one to start think about these types of unique challenges, and should caregivers consider when planning for their own retirement?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, but I'll try to make it simpler. Due to the current research that's out there, we've seen, and as my experience as well, we've seen that there's a tremendous impact on caregivers, a tremendous impact on how they're able to save for retirement. They're dipping into savings to care for their loved one. They may be paying for long-term care expenses for their loved one. They may miss promotions. They may have to go from full-time to part-time to caregiving. They may have to retire early due to caregiving. And so a lot of people are not thinking about the aspects of how much caregiving can really impact your life and how that life transition can really turn your life upside down if you're not only not balancing it, or you're not participating or anticipating this can occur.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. And from a planning standpoint, what should people start to do before they become a caregiver? What should they start to think about? What should they start to implement in terms from the insurance aspect or from other aspects that you work with clients?
Yeah, the simple answer, I just start with a simple answer because a lot of these questions can be very complex. The simple answer is get your finances in order, get your loved one's finances in order, and have a self-care plan. That would be the simple answer. The complex answer is really making what I call like mental dressing yourself. So mentally preparing yourself for what that's going to be like, what that process and what that experience may be like for you. So that may mean who's going to be your support system when this happens? Is there flexibility within your workplace to work remotely? What employer benefits are available to you to access when you become a caregiver? What self-care is going to be? What is your self-care routine? What is going to be in place for you to make sure that you're taking care of your own health? It's 60% of family caregivers have a declining health after caregiving. 40% die before their loved one passes away. So it's And more than 50% of caregivers have anxiety and or depression. And so health is a major factor in caregiving. And as we say in the financial industry, health is wealth. So if you're able to learn ahead of time how to care for yourself while caring for somebody else, you're really much suited in a very good position to handle caregiving. I can't say perfect position because there will always be stumps in the road, but you'll be in a good position to take care of yourself.
Interesting. What about things such as disability insurance or these types of things? How should one start to put these things into place?
Yeah. So as I said, a lot of caregivers are, I wouldn't say blindfolded, but tunnel visioned when they're caring for someone. Sometimes it can be very overwhelming and their loved one is their center of focus, not necessarily themselves. And so reevaluating healthcare coverage may not be something they look into. Looking at long-term disability, short-term disability policies at the workplace may not be looked into. EAP and employee assistance programs that may have therapy assistance, that may have care managers that can help you through that process. Depending on your workplace, they may have hidden benefits you never realized. So I would always say tap into those first. Look at your employer, see what benefits are available, and then you can look at other realms of where you can go next. Find what's closest to you, and then you can work around that.
Yeah. Next question is talk about a lot of caregivers, they care for a loved one when they're a little bit older. And what are important factors caregivers need to understand when deciding when to claim Social Security, especially if they've had to interrupt their careers during caregiving?
Yeah, so the average age of a family caregiver is around 49. I think it's 49 and a half or something like that. Anyhow, there are individuals like me who's had caregiving at an earlier age. There's people who are spousal caregivers that may be in their 70s or 80s caring for their spouse. So there is a wide range of ages when it comes to family caregivers. I would look into as far as Social Security is they may be at a point that they're 49 and you can't get Social Security at that age. So it's really dependent on your personal situation and whether or not taking Social Security early is an option for you or not.
Yeah. Next question I have for you is we're talking about Social Security. What about estate planning and what are key estate planning steps caregivers should take to ensure their financial security and that of the person they're caring for?
Yeah. So as I said previously, making sure your finances in order and your loved one's finances in that order, that also includes estate planning. So making sure that your loved one has all the estate planning in place. You don't want to be in a situation where you're looking for the power of attorney forms in the middle of the night because you need the next day. This is not accessible, nor is it convenient when bad things happen or unexpected occurrences occur. Making sure that you have all the estate planning not only for yourself, but your loved one, because you may fall into that category that you may need help yourself. You may need someone to help you make decisions. You may need, maybe you pass away and you need to make sure that your beneficiaries are aligned. You want to protect yourself just as much as your loved one, which is often most forgotten. You have to make sure that when you're planning ahead, that both avenues are covered.
Yeah. And what about retirement accounts and tax strategies? And how can caregivers optimize their accounts and tax strategies, particularly when juggling caregiving expenses?
Yeah, great question. So usually the question I get the most is when can you decide which one you should take care of? Your loved one and their long-term care expenses or you and your retirement? Which one takes priority? And for me, I would say try to make both a priority. And you can do that by making sure you have a spending plan. See if there's any extra money that you can save. Even if you're saving $1, that's better than nothing. And as I said before, making sure that you are taking advantage of things that are right in front of you. If Employer Max is right in front of you, take advantage of it. Even if that's $1, even if that's $1 a month, way better than nothing. That's now $24 or depending on whatever the match is set up. But something is always better than nothing. So if you can find a little bit of squeaky room or just some area that you can save, then that's way better than.
Follow-up question I have for you is talking about saving. The other question is healthcare costs in retirement. And what strategies do you recommend for caregivers to prepare for both their healthcare needs and the healthcare needs of those they are caring for in retirement?
Yeah, you're asking a lot of really good questions. But a recent survey from Fidelity stated that its healthcare expenses in retirement is about over $200,000 for each individual, which is a huge amount. You may be in a position where you don't even have $200,000 saved for retirement. And you're like, how am I? Like all my expenses are going to be paid to healthcare, not necessarily having or enjoying retirement or paying for my living expenses. When I'm thinking about creating healthcare and thinking about healthcare costs in retirement, not only for caregivers, but their loved ones, I'm thinking about how can we most maximize what you already have. You may have to be in a position where, unfortunately, you're dealt with the cards you have and will work with what you have, but you also may have room to maximize what you currently have accessible to you, such as maybe an HSA is a possibility, or looking at long-term care insurance may be a possibility, or that means saving a little bit of extra per month to think about healthcare costs in the future. Or that's making sure that you get your annual doctor's checkup. Because as we've seen in research, the making sure you're getting those annual checkups can prevent illnesses in the future. And I'm sure you know all about that, but you can save money by making sure that you're taking care of yourself and making sure that you're getting those annual doctor's visits in.
Yeah. How about people that are caregivers interested in the FIRE movement, the financial independence, early retirement movement? What special considerations should they take into account?
Yeah. So my husband and I were really passionate and driven by the FIRE movement. We're both only children. And so we understood that caregiving was going to be on the horizon probably one day or another. Did I think at 25 that was going to be on the horizon? No. I thought maybe 35, 40 would maybe be the optimal time for that. But saving and doing the FIRE movement, at least the financial independent movement, is really ideal for caregiving. But it's sort of fortunate to be like finally hit FIRE and then having to fill a caregiving role. If I had a perfect ideal world, everyone would fire and be able to caregive the way they want to, but that's not an ideal world. And so if I'm looking at someone's fire plan, let's say that they want to fire or at least be financial independent in the next 10 years, I would look at rough patches with that plan, unexpected events that may occur that we can plan for together. So it may be that within those 10 years of planning, that year 5, you're a caregiver for 1 year. It may be year 7 that you have an unexpected knee surgery or something. Year 8, you may just make a hypothesis, random ideas here, but it could be that some of those years you may have unexpected health events or family events that you may have to plan for. And as much as we would like you to retire at your ideal plan, it may not happen. And that's what we adjust for.
Yeah. The other question, mental health is all the rage, and how can caregivers emotionally and mentally prepare for retirement, especially when transitioning from a caregiving role?
Yeah. So the 2 things that I really promote is self-care and financial wellness. And so making sure just these may seem like basic for some people, but for some, these are not basics. These are things that they need, but it's a struggle to get. Staying out of high interest credit card debt or debt in general, having an emergency plan in place. For someone who's more conservative or expecting to be a caregiver, you may want to put in a couple extra months of expenses into your emergency fund to protect yourself. making sure that where to pull money when unexpected events occur. So having a plan in place that you can say, let's say my son or daughter is in the hospital and they need someone, I need to take a couple weeks off of work. So I'm going to take family leave but I'm not going to get paid during that family leave period. So I need to figure out how I'm going to pay for myself. How am I going to pay for my expenses? And I can either have the option of, do I take it from my retirement account? Do I take it from my emergency savings? Do I take it from, let's say, a CD or a taxable brokerage account? So trying to figure out where's the next avenue, which bucket you can pull money from in case something does happen. Because realistically, things are going to happen. Unless you have a student wrestler costume and you're like patting yourself or with some type of protection, things are going to happen. And that's why we plan. That's why we prepare.
How can people find you and reach out to you and learn more about you?
Yeah, I'm on social media, mostly on LinkedIn and Twitter. Twitter, I more show day to day what it's like to be a financial planner and what it's like to be a family caregiver. And then on LinkedIn is more full length stories and my experiences. And then I also have an email newsletter, which I can link that all below if your followers are interested.
Yeah. And let's thank Danielle for coming on and sharing her knowledge and expertise and for an engaging, thoughtful conversation around caregiving and retirement. And again, thanks so much for your precious time.
Thank you. I enjoyed this.